Greetings, brothers and sisters. One of my viewers sent me this or left a comment saying such a thing existed. Corey Feldman's Comeback King. Now, Corey Feldman is in the title of the song. This isn't, this isn't just on his channel. Let's make this smaller here. See, this is Corey Feldman, his YouTube channel, but the title of the song is Corey Feldman's Comeback King, featuring Curtis Young, official Sci-Fi Records video release. And he put his own name in the title of the song, which is classic Corey. You know, he's got this weird curl thing he does here. But he's saying he's making a comeback. Does a career of half-empty shows at the equivalent of an adult Chuck E. Cheese represent a career? Because what is he coming back from? Like that would make it sound like he was once relevant and, had a music career. Corey's great. I used to cover Corey a lot, and he's just, one of a kind in terms of, he's on a Chet Hanks level of cluelessness. Let's watch a little bit of his song here.
If you're going to swing.
If you're going to swing. And then he gets his dukes up. If you're going to swing and he's got his dukes up, look out for Corey and his dukes.
You better make it sting.
You better make it sting.
I'm the comeback king.
Because he's the comeback king. So if you're gonna take a swing, you better make it sting, because he's the comeback king. There's only one little problem with this, Corey. So here's Corey Feldman's official Instagram page. He didn't even have a check mark. And he was in this hospital. He went to the hospital because, he says, let's go to this is where he was stabbed with a pin. The world's smallest knife wound, or, yes, I was attacked 2 days ago. Yes, they used some sort of sharp weapon. And yes, it went into my body. This is what the scar looks like. Obviously, if it was a knife, I got very lucky. No, it wasn't a knife. I'm blessed if it was a syringe. I pray for the best results. God bless. Corey, the truth is coming. Preserve innocence. And kids, #kids too. Corey Feldman says after his stabbing, I could be dead in a few months. Right? So Corey was in his car. Somebody used what Corey explained was some sort of electronic device to open up his car door, even though the door was locked, and he stabbed him with something. He rushed to the hospital, calls all the media news outlets because of his epic documentary, which was a complete fail and wasn't going to do anything for anybody. But he said, the powers that be were out to get him, and that they might have drugged him or something, been poisoned, or was given AIDS.
Corey Feldman, who 2 weeks ago made the shocking claim that he was stabbed while in his car at an LA intersection. Now, for the first time since that alleged incident, Corey is opening up about what happened. It's an interview you'll see only here on Access.
I locked the door. He pulls on the door, and he couldn't get in.
He couldn't get in.
It was locked, but then
it was locked.
And somehow when he pulls and lunges again, he opens it with ease. The door just opened. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if he had some kind of magnetic device or
maybe it was just magic. Did you ever think about magic, Corey? Maybe they were using dark magic or light magic.
What? But he got the door open, lunged in one time, stabbed me like that, and pulled back out, and that was it.
So he pre-mead. So you're saying he pre-mead.
Show them who is boss.
As I said, it was right here.
Can you show me?
Well, it's faded now. You won't really see much.
It was faded. Was it a mosquito? Was it a mosquito, Corey?
Corey posted pictures of himself being examined at the hospital. He believes he may have been stuck with something, possibly a hypodermic needle. So you...
Boom. Corey's... Those wheels are turning up here, Corey.
You were worried and you were getting tested that maybe it could have been a poison or it could have been something.
Correct. Well, I'm still worried. I mean, there's a, 5% chance that it could be something else. We don't know.
There's a 5% chance. We don't know.
There's a possibility there could be a poison in me and I could be dead in a few months. That's pretty jarring.
Well, actually, Corey, he did get jabbed. So maybe Corey is very prophetic here. But maybe he's laying down a prophecy. It's just 4 or 5 years too early. This is from 4 years ago. You know what the sad thing is? This video's only got like 4,000 views. Like my video's going to get more views than this Access Hollywood video where Corey's giving exclusive interviews of his stabbing. All right, so I got that last night. I ended up, doing a screen grab before I forgot. But I got a bunch of funny Kanye stuff to get to, JoJo Magoo, and he's wants more money for the Ukraine, and some more just footage of Corey's video, and then I'm going to do a whole Corey thing at the end. So a lot of funny stuff. This is a real funny, today it's to me it's a lot of funny stuff. But anyways, I was watching I had CNN on while I was eating my breakfast. And one of these shills, one of these actors, slash anchorman said one of the funniest things ever. Let's watch that and then we'll get back to Corey.
Black Sea. In Fukushima, there were traces of radioactivity all the way in California, across the Pacific Ocean. So the risks are real.
Playing with fire, right? Playing with the fire in the middle of a war.
Wait, what did you just say?
Playing with fire, right? Playing with the fire in the middle of a war.
Playing with fire in the middle of a war? They're playing with matches in the middle of a nuclear war. They're in war. They're playing with fire. Yeah, well, that could be really dangerous, especially in a war. Like they're just, I got a bunch of memes. I'm going to show you some memes of Corey in a second as well. I'm going to talk about Kanye's new hilarious video. Like funny stuff coming. This guy, and so they were talking about the Russians taking over a nuclear power plant in the Ukraine, and somehow this guy, like a lot of times these guys go off script and they have to say something creative themselves, and they're such script readers, they say stupid stuff like this, but it goes unnoticed because the news media, on the internet, people like me will cover it, but the news media is no longer holding itself to any standard. But the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to play with fire when you're in a war. Like, you certainly should never play with fire, especially when you're in a war. And so let's go to Corey here.
You're a beautiful soul, but no one knows it.
Exactly, Corey. You're a beautiful soul and nobody knows it. He put together a bunch of memes here. Let me go through them. But Corey's got a problem. He's a beautiful soul, but no one else knows it.
Know what time it is? It's a comeback.
It's a comeback. You know what time it is. It's a comeback. He's the comeback king, and that's what time it is. What time is it? Is it 1? Is it 2? No, it's a comeback. It's a comeback time from the comeback king.
Show them who is boss.
It's you, Corey. You're boss. Corey's boss. Come on, we all know it. Corey's the boss. And he's got to show him who's boss, and it's Corey. It's obviously Corey. Okay, so these are wonderful. And that was just me watching like another minute into the song. Like, I could have done this all day. Like, the whole song's like this. Be sure to check it out if you're in for a good laugh, But that's Corey. I'm going to come back and do a whole Corey thing at the end. Now, if you happen to be a Corey fan, you're somebody who used to be or still is some sort of a QB, and you think Corey did some righteous stuff in exposing the, Hollywood pedos and things, and you're going to leave me a nasty comment criticizing why I would criticize such a great and noble soul, such a beautiful soul, but no one knows it, then you need to stay tuned and listen to the end of the video when I tell you how stupid you are. And I provide, lots of info to back it up. I haven't done it yet, but I know what I'm going to say. But let's move over to some of these other headlines. Joy Behar suffers dramatic fall on The View, face plants in front of audience. And so here they are clapping. And the reason I'm covering this is, so many people sent me this. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But I got a bunch of comments and like 8 or 9 messages on whatever, Facebook and Instagram. Because it's the kind of thing that people say, hey, this reminds me of Pockets of the Future. Boom, there goes Joy there. Boom, she's rolling over. They're all coming around to help her because they're compassionate like this. These great women aren't beneath, bending down and picking up Joy. Scooping Joy off the floor.
Come on, just stop, just stand.
They're picking her up.
Let me tell you, these chairs are dangerous.
Woo! She got up. Boom, boom, boom. She had a spill. And so what's interesting is, if I didn't make this video, people would be sending me this for, they'll be sending me this for days. Like, I was going to cover this yesterday. There she is. Going to get picked up. I was going to cover this yesterday when I, whatever I made the last Whoopi video yesterday, the day before. But I didn't get around to it. I've been getting, this is the kind of thing people are like, why isn't he talking about this? Like, Joy took a spill. And this is from a local news station. And they made a mistake, and one of my viewers sent it to me.
And no arrests have been made.
A 71-year-old man is accused of inappropriate.
71-year-old man, JoJo Magoo.
71-year-old man is accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl at the Walmart in West Mifflin Sunday afternoon.
In West Mifflin. Thunder Mifflin. Look, they accidentally put JoJo's picture up. And so, because they know he's a known snoozler, groper, and sniffer. So this was from yesterday. Kanye West kidnaps, buries Pete Davidson alive. An easy music video. I actually watched the video. My wife and I watched it. It's good to watch all the way to the end if you do watch it yourself, because there's some funny. Kanye's just like a born comedian. Some of it's intentional. Sometimes he's trying to be funny. Sometimes he's just being funny without intentionally doing it. But it's very funny. I enjoyed the song as well. Kanye's with Easy video is really scary, says Pete Davidson's friend. It's claymation, by the way. Kanye likes tweet. Kim Kardashian likes tweet praising respectful Pete Davidson. And this clown, Gene Simmons, a-hole Kanye West needs a good B-slap. And this guy's just, just an absolute horrible human being. He played a character he called the Demon. Here he is with his, he was on The Celebrity Apprentice as well. Because he's, Gene Simmons and he's a total tool. Plus he said this.
You are not allowed to infect anybody just because you think you've got rights that are delusional, of course. This delusional, evil idea, you got to identify those people and bring them out into the open so you know who they are. If you're willing to walk among us unvaccinated, you are an enemy.
So here is Kanye's song, Easy, and it's claymation. I like the song. And I think Kanye does his best work when he's triggered. And there's Pete Davidson. And then, you can watch the video for yourself if you're interested. But I found it to be amusing, and especially the very end. The same mistakes. American media can't quit loving war. And so, please don't push us into a nuclear war, the person writes. This is from Huffington Post, which, sucks. And even they get it, right? And the media is so pro-war here. Biden seeks $10 billion for the Ukraine and $22 billion for COVID expenses. So Biden is now wanting $10 billion. It was just one, giving money to the Ukraine. I saw the Ukrainian president. I might cover that tomorrow. He gave this goofy speech, and it was, kind of funny. But I don't have the video on that. It was on MSNBC and not CNN. And so I don't have it taped anywhere. But I can, I might get that tomorrow. But either way, this is your tax dollars going to something that most of us, I don't know what the polling data is, but we're very wary of. And, if it ends up in nuclear war, then that's a whole nother level of suck. So I want to come back to this, but first let's go to the Corey Feldman piece. And so I covered Corey Feldman for quite a bit of time. In the beginning, it was, it was more positive because this is when I was, I worked in treatment centers with kids who were teenage sex offenders, and I worked as a clinician and counselor with abuse. And there was a good movie that came out, good documentary made by a Hollywood person. I forget the woman's name, but it's called An Open Secret, which you can see, I think, even on YouTube. And it's about all the the pure pervs that work in Hollywood. And it wasn't such a big name, but it was the overall problem with child actors in Hollywood, right? And so Corey was speaking out about that. And at that point, to me, he was credible. And so I thought, well, here's a childhood actor who's speaking out of his own, abuse. But then he just started to clown himself, right? And it happened pretty quickly. And what happened was the Me Too movement came out, and Corey tried to cash in, right? Like Corey wanted to be a part of the Me Too, and he couldn't understand why his stuff and, the stuff with kids in Hollywood was not getting covered. And so he decided to, force himself and get some of the Me Too movement money, right? Like he wanted to clearly capitalize on not only what he considered his own abuse, but his friend Corey Haim. Now I'm going to put I have tons of photos from previous videos I made on Corey Feldman. And I'm not going to put them in any sort of order. I'm just going to do it in alphabetical order. But all the photos back up what I'm saying here. It's just not necessarily going to sync up. It might, to some extent. But before the Me Too thing, Corey exposed himself as a fraud, right? So there first was, he went on the celebrity wife swap. And he really didn't have a wife. He had a harem of girls he called Corey's Angels that were young Hollywood actresses that Corey was mentoring and managing and handling, in air quotes. And he made them dress in lingerie all the time. So, they were, he got to eat meat, but they all were fruit and vegetarians. They were only able to eat that kind of food because he said that it kept them slim. And he manipulated them and controlled them and, was just basically some little harem he had over there. And these girls were coming in and out of his house as he, some of them were in his band, the same way the Brady Bunch had a band or whatever it is. And, he was abusing these girls, right? And was exposed on that show. And then he had a party and he invited some writer from Vice who just destroyed Corey in the article. And so it was another one of these, it was abusive, right? Corey was manipulating and just a sleazy dude. And so we already knew that he couldn't be trusted based in all of that. But then he tried to sponge in on the Me Too movement, saying he would announce his abuser's name only if he got enough GoFundMe money. He wanted $10 million on GoFundMe or something like that. He ended up getting $300,000 to make his documentary. And he wanted to hire security. He said he was going to be at risk and he was going to release some big names. And, that's when Isaac Cappy was around, these other frauds that are around, right? This whole movement, there's goofiness going on, and the Q movement had just taken off. And so Corey was trying to monetize his, his story, but not only his, he wanted to monetize Corey Haim's story as well, right? His now dead best friend. And he said he refused to name their abusers unless he was able to do it in a documentary, and for that he needed so much money. And then he, did a lot of just stupid things because he started to get exposed on channels like mine. There was these people who some of them had bad interactions with him. And there was one of the guys' names was Wolf, some guy named Wolf who had a YouTube channel. And Corey called them the Wolf Pack, and they were after him. And he started to make all these victim videos about how he's being trolled. The Wolf Pack, is it the Wolf Pack they talk about in Full House, or the Wolf Pack they talk in the Hangover movies? Like, which Wolf Pack are you talking about? And, he just started to clown himself more and more. But he was getting support from the Cubies, right? And I was getting all these comments. This is some of the stuff I had to deal with the Cubies who would say things like, at least Corey's trying to do some good here. Why are you criticizing such a beautiful soul? They didn't say that, but I'm just sort of jazzing it up. But I got so many comments, and I'm like, because I know more than you. They're like, what did you ever do? I go, well, I worked in treatment centers battling this stuff for years, and I made quality videos about this. And then Amy Berg is her name. The Amy Berg documentary, which was called An Inside Secret, which is, more well done. It's a journalistic, it has, ethics and good journalism used, but they don't have any big names. There's no Steven Spielberg. Guys like Isaac Cappy were just coming out and naming names with no proof because he wanted, Isaac Cappy was a desperate person and he wanted attention, right? He wanted to, be holding court, and he liked the way that the Cubies and the people who are, now all into this, all the pizza stuff, and now that, woke up a whole bunch of people, and they're all, why we got to save the kids kind of thing. And they were just emotional, and, they weren't well balanced, and they were jumping on anything, whether it was factual or not, attacking people, and completely triggered. There's some dogs barking. It's not the wolf pack coming to get me. If you can hear my dogs barking, they're just barking a bark. It's not it's not the wolf pack. But we got all these comments from people from the Q movement. I'm like, you guys just haven't been around long enough. You Cubies, right? And I was like, you guys suck. I could tell how bad they sucked. And so that was another level of having to deal with all that stuff, right? Because clearly Corey Feldman was just trying to manipulate and profit from his so-called story. Remember, he went on a talk show with the doctors, and he gave up a name of some guy who, the guy's like, I didn't do that, right? And so, it was like not even credible. And the guy was a nobody. He was like an extra, somebody that nobody would know his name, right? And Corey was saying that he had all these big names, but then he wanted everyone to pre-order his documentary, which was a disaster. Like, there was glitches, technical glitches, and, people were wanting to get their money back. And the big thing he was holding over everyone's head was he was going to release Corey Haim's abuser, who was supposed to be a big name. And it was Charlie Sheen, and we already knew about Charlie Sheen because Corey Feldman had hinted at it, but Corey Haim's mom disputed it, she was saying, no, Corey Feldman's just trying to profit off of my son, and so it wasn't like it was, even a slam dunk, and that was a complete disaster. And Corey Feldman, he had started his own social media platform because he's saying, why should I let YouTube make money for me? And so he had his own social media platform, but all these trolls ended up signing up for it, and he was getting harassed on his own platform, so he ended up deplatforming himself in typical Corey Feldman fashion, right? So he's a complete clown, right? He just across the board, he punked himself, he exposed himself as a liar and an opportunist. And the other piece to it was there was this video out there. You can find it on YouTube. I'm not going to show you the clip, but I don't have it. All my old Corey clips are gone. I could redo them, but I don't know why I would. I don't know why I waste my time like that. But Corey was, he had some reality TV show with Corey Haim, and they were in a diner. It was very fake and contrived, but Corey Haim confronted him for saying that Corey Feldman hung out with his abuser, that Corey Feldman knew from Corey Haim who his abuser was, and that they hung out and they were like being best friends. And he was kind of bummed by it, right? Which, of course, he would be. And so whatever truth is in that, and whether it was Charlie Sheen or not, they were in a movie together called Lucas, where Corey Haim was a young child actor. So, it's possible Charlie Sheen is a scumbag, whatever it might be. But it isn't a slam dunk, and Corey Feldman not only discredited himself, but he discredited all of the people who were in Hollywood who were trying to combat this plague, and so did Isaac Cappy, because you just can't announce names with no proof. You just can't say, oh, this happened without, like I just know it happened. I'm not going to show you, any kind of documentation because it's not believable, right? And that's where the Cubies just took off with all this stuff and they ran with it and it became factual and they made up lists and things like this and, Hollywood celebrities and all the stuff to do with J.E. and, it was a complete mess because many of us, like I had, started these videos way back when about the systemic abuse, but, they're only concerned with celebrities. They're only concerned with politicians, not the, plague that this kind of abuse, child abuse in this way, is a plague, and it exists in many, poor and middle-class communities as well, but they didn't care about any of that. They just cared about the celebrities and politicians, left-wing politicians, that they hated. And so this is where the Q movement just destroyed all of that, because now it's a joke, right? They've turned it into a joke. They used you and worked you, and this Corey Feldman thing was a part of it. It made a mockery of anybody now saying this. Oh, you're just a QB. You're just a Corey Feldman, right? You wrecked it by your own stupidity and your inability to be, grounded in what you were doing. You weren't doing it in a way that was fair or ethical or even truthful, especially truthful. People are just, it was like a witch hunt, right? And this was, Isaac Cappy and Corey Feldman, all these other people were making it like that. And then, of course, the way that they used all these people's, their craziness against the truth community. Like people who established this, people like me who, years and years ago started making, well thought out videos that were, more balanced. I mean, I'm not a journalist, but, they at least we had some sort of ethics and I started making a distinction. My earlier videos weren't as good, but as I started to think about it and mature in it, I realized I had to, make a distinction between what is fact and what is speculation and, what are existing narratives. And now I'm just like, it's such a mess. There's so much disinformation out there. There's so many people who are, the fakies. Oh, that's fake, this fake, unbalanced people that can't, see the broader picture or see the way they're being worked and, are just emotional. Oh, you disagree with me. I got to tell you it's fake. It's fake. Why can't you see what I see? Fake, right? All that stuff. And so the truth community is a joke now. And Corey Feldman and the Cubies and all these people, again, it wasn't just them. Alex Jones he was always controlled opposition in the beginning. So it was kind of doomed from the beginning because of the way that, the powers that be already had their hooks into it when it started. And now it's just a joke to everyone outside of it. Like anybody, most people don't want to admit they watch these videos and they believe in some of them because they don't want to, be labeled as one of these, goofy, doofy people, right? It's just, all of it. And so, that was the Corey Feldman thing. It was funny. And Corey was, like I said, an ass clown. But, this is where it always ends up when you have dumb people and, people who are immature, a part of a movement, and there's no sort of oversight and people can say whatever they want. And most of it ended up being disinformation or just, out and out stupidity. So anyways, this idea that JoJo Magoo is now giving $10 million to, the Ukraine, and that's just the first bit of this thing. The president of the Ukraine was saying, if you don't stop Putin now, then he's saying this to the Europeans. He said, why don't you guys stand up for, for all of us and protest? Like that's Putin, that's going to stop Putin. And we don't even know what's real and what's not that's being covered by the media. A lot of it looks really fishy. But he was basically saying that once Putin conquers the Ukraine, then he's going to go into Europe. And of course he's not going to do that because then he'd be at war with all of Europe and America. And he doesn't want to do that, right? That's not going to happen. Like he's going to stop at the Ukraine. It's just like it'd be suicide if he didn't. It's already, horrible over there with all the economic sanctions. But the whole thing looks like it's, like he's being worked in some way. And I don't know, right? But, this money that they give to foreign aid, all these guys, like you think about all the money that, Dick Cheney's worth like $85 million from, the work that he did for Halliburton, right? He was a Halliburton CEO, and then he then he retired from that and went back to politics. Like in between Bush 1 and Bush 2, he worked for this company called Halliburton, which was, that does a lot of stuff like rebuild countries after wars. And then he was the presiding force over those illegal wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And Halliburton made a killing, and he was paid, $85 million. I mean, that's what he's worth as a career politician, because there's a lot of money in bailouts, right? In rebuilding and restructuring countries. And Americans don't want to pay for this, right? I mean, how many Americans that aren't of like Ukrainian descent care about this, right? And so this is the case of follow the money. Of course, JoJo Magoo and his son Hunter has already financial connections to the country of the Ukraine. And so, we're going to see a lot of this money funneling back into the powers that be's pockets. Like I said in the beginning, whoever won this election between Trump and Biden was going to be in charge of the going out of business sale of America, as they, break up America and sell off its parts, and they all profit from it. And then they take the money and put it into hard assets so they can, have something for themselves in a, post-apocalyptic nuclear war situation, or at least in the economic collapse situation, whatever it is, right? It's apocalyptic and apocalyptic, and it's funny, but it's not funny. Like, it's funny now and it won't be funny later. But anyways, this is why we say, like, there's nothing that anybody can do with all the truth movement is completely imploded on itself. And I mean, it's just, we're headed for destruction and there's no turning back. It's divine will and divine providence. And the only way to really, make something of this is to connect to God internally. That's why I talk about the heartfulness meditation as a solution, but some people will try it and everyone else will just go down the rabbit hole of lies and deception until the system implodes on itself, and then, they'll try to figure things out then. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, Destiny Reporting for the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.